Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's reading vlog. I want to do another kind of like challengey type of video. I thought this one could be really fun. I'm gonna be reading books with titles that spell out the same letters of my name. So we're gonna start with an S book for Sarah. Thankfully, my name is only 4 letters, so we have 4 books to read in this video. I don't have a list of any books. Well, no, that's a lie. I have a list of books with the same letter that goes with my name, that correlate with my name, but I think I want to specifically stick with my physical TBR because my goal the second half of this year, and honestly this whole year, and honestly in my reading journey in general, is to knock off some books in or on my physical TBR. So I'm gonna go through all of the books and we're just gonna start with S. I'm not gonna pick out A, R, A just now or just yet. I'm definitely in a romance mood. I wouldn't say I want to pick up a fantasy or a mystery slash thriller, so specifically romance, and hopefully I have a few options for the letter S. I feel like S is a popular letter. I don't know. They're all popular letters other than like X or Z maybe. Or Q? I don't know. Honestly, I don't have to get into the alphabet right now, but here she is. Let's choose some books that start with an S. Here are the book options we have for S. There's honestly quite a few, more than I really thought. I mean, I did say it was a popular letter, but more on there specifically than I thought. Scythe, which is a dystopian trilogy. I do want to get to this in the fall winter time. Like I said, I really want to read romance and my summer TBR, which is mostly these books. Shipped by Angie Hockman. Savor It by Tara Dewitt. Summertime Punchline by Betty Corello. I love this cover. Summertime by Willow Astor, and then Summer Reading by Jen McKinley. I don't think I want to do this one. This one. I don't think I want. The book I chose was Savor It by Tara Dewitt. This one is a small town romance. I'm pretty sure he is a chef and he comes to the small town, and I think they have to like fake date for a wedding, which I love me a small town. I love me a wedding in a book. When I start it and I get into it, I will give you guys a summary from what I know. Very excited about this one. Also, the cover is so cute. The pink and the purple and everything about this is stunning. We've got S checked off of our list. 1 is about to be down and 3 more to go. Much later in the day, but I got 98 pages in. I'm starting chapter 10. Reading the back of it, I don't know why I assumed, or where I read, or I think I just made it up, that they're gonna fake date to a wedding. That is not part of the plot. It took me up until like right now, before I like started this clip, to realize that. I'm like waiting for like that part of the plot to play into it, and I'm like, this is kind of like, we're not getting to the point. Also, sorry if you hear the rain, it is downpouring right now. Anyway, I go to read the back of it again. Literally nothing about the summary is giving fake dating to a wedding. What book am I thinking of? Because it's not this one. Her ex-boyfriend in the small town they live in gets engaged, and she wants to win, it says on the back. She wants to beat him in the Festival of Spoons, which is the town they live in, and it's like an annual summer competition. So that's like her story. She is small town grown up, she's a teacher there, her ex is newly engaged, and she's just trying to like show him that she's like moved on. Not in like a petty way, but she just wants to like win at something. And then you have Fisher coming in. He is a Michelin star chef and he's from New York, but something happened. He got fired from his job and they need to give him like a little bit of a break before he comes back like into the spotlight and into the chef community of what's going on. So they send him over to the small town of Spoons, right next door to where Sage lives, and he's now working to come up with like a menu for this new restaurant that's opening up in the small town. So you have all the small townspeople being very curious, very nosy of what's going on, and you're getting all of these like different side characters, but also we're trying to focus on our main characters here. But the pacing is so interesting. Like, we're 100 pages in, and even though I thought the plot was totally different, I still feel like we're not getting to the point of the plot, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm 100 pages in, I feel like I don't really know our main characters, even though I know some about their past and why they're where they are like right now. I just feel like we're not like getting too much in depth about them. I feel like they're very surface level, especially with the plot being very slow. Like he's come to the town, not much has happened like at all, and we're already 100 pages in. I feel like a lot could have been happening, so I'm not like obsessed with it. I think this might just be a little bit of a slow burn, so I think I'm gonna wait and like hopefully it'll pick up. I don't want it to get like halfway through the book and it's still slow and like nothing's really happening. I'm wondering if this is gonna be more character focused, because we're definitely with our characters in their day-to-day so far. Like it's not very plot driven. And again, I don't know if it's because I thought this was a a fake dating situation going on, but it does say something happens between them and it leads to dating rumors, so they strike a deal to turn things around. They have an alliance that blooms into something unexpected. Like I don't know genuinely where I got that from, but so far it's okay. I'm not like absolutely loving it. I will say it's giving like great small town vibes. It's kind of giving like When in Rome small town vibes, or if you read a novel love story, the town that our main character falls into, the magical realism of it, kind of giving that small town vibes, because her best friend works at like a bakery and you have like all of like the typical small town stuff you get in those kinds of books, and Sage is like our typical small town girl. It's really cute. I really like that she has all these like farm animals and stuff, and it's giving those vibes perfectly, but I think I'm just not loving our characters just yet. I haven't really connected to them because I feel like we're not getting too much. Even though we're like spending a lot of time with them, I feel like we're not getting enough information or depth is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I think I'm just have to wait to get a little bit further in, but I think I was just hoping being 100 pages in, I would feel a little bit more for it. I think I just had higher expectations maybe. Maybe I just thought I was gonna like click with it immediately, but it might just take some time. I'm gonna continue reading a little bit tonight and then update you guys tomorrow. Those are all my thoughts right now. I just needed to say that I don't know where I got the whole wedding thing from, genuinely. Got a little over halfway. I'm on page 160 something. There's like 315 pages in this book. I'm just like not really enjoying it. I feel like things are happening, but like not for the plot. Like her flowers got destroyed and he like climbed under the fence and ran away, and like they're going to a shop, but like we're not focusing on what I feel like the plot is, where they have to work together for the festival or make her ex jealous or like do all these things that I feel like could help their chemistry and stuff, whereas they're spending a lot of time together, not in a way that's making me feel like they have a connection or any chemistry. Like I'm reading them and like their conversations and they're getting like a little bit deep in them, but like it still feels a little surface level between them, and I don't really know exactly what it is. I think it's just the scenes that they are in together aren't giving anything towards like the relationship, or for like me as like a reader to feel anything, if that makes sense. And like the back of the book, it says if Schitt's Creek and the bear had a love child, which it definitely has the small town vibes of Schitt's Creek, but it doesn't have like the humor or the personalities that Schitt's Creek has. And then the bear, I've never watched, but I know it has like intense kitchen cooking scenes. Like that is like the premise of the whole entire show. This man hasn't been in the kitchen once. He hasn't been in the place that they're building in this small town for him to work at once. Like he hasn't, like we haven't even covered that. Like he's made a few dishes with Sage's help, but like we haven't seen him make anything. Like he just like came out for her to test it. Different scenes that are being included I feel like aren't really helping the case. I don't really know how to explain it. That's just how I'm feeling. I ended up listening to the audiobook. I had a couple credits on Audible, so I got it on there, and it has 2 voice actors for both point of views, which I like. But even listening to it, I thought that would help a little bit, give a little personality to the characters, but it's not doing much. I'm hoping it picks up now that we've gotten to the point where they're about to start focusing on like working together for the festival, and I'm hoping it like picks up with like better scenes, I guess, and better dialogue. Like there's not really much, I mean there's a little banter, but like nothing that's like pulling me in, if that makes sense. I don't really know if much is gonna change. Fingers crossed it does though. Maybe the second half will be a little bit better. Just finally finished listening to Savor It. I ended up zoning out during the epilogue, and I was like, why am I even listening to the epilogue? But finished the epilogue, and you know, I still feel the same about this book. I just feel like it personally felt very like one-dimensional and like not very exciting between the characters and the plot. Like nothing was exciting about it or like gripping to me. Like I'm not gonna remember anything really about this book, but again, I'm happy for our characters. I'm happy that they found each other and everything like that, but just personally the way I felt about the writing in the book, I don't think meshed well, I guess, with what I like or what I was expecting, I think, of the book. I think there was just a little bit too many descriptions and like inner dialogue, and like it felt a little choppy, like didn't like mesh very well. I keep saying the word mesh, but that's like the best word I can think of. I think I'm gonna rate this 2.5 stars. I was gonna say 3, but like I personally didn't enjoy it, but the only reason I'm thinking 3 is because I always say 3 stars. I may not have enjoyed it personally like a lot, but it's something I would recommend. But I think I'm gonna stick with 2.5 because I personally didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping to, but it's not something that I wouldn't deter someone from. I think if you're into small town romances and like summer vibes and cute animals, there's a lot of like farm animals on here, I think you would enjoy this. I would say give it a shot. I just think personally I didn't really connect with anything about it, but I wouldn't steer anyone away from this book, if that makes sense. Kind of conflicted on that with like rating wise, but I think I'm gonna stick with a 2.5. And then if anyone wanted what this book kind of gave and what happened in this book, I would definitely recommend it. It's definitely more like, it feels character driven, like we're just following these characters. Like the plot doesn't really make sense to what's on the back of the book. I thought it was gonna be more exciting festival and all the vibes, and I don't know, a little bit bummed that I didn't love this one because I wanted to so bad. If you didn't know, the next letter in my name is A. So I ended up, while listening to that, going through my physical TBR and taking out all of the A books that I have on my shelf, and there's honestly a lot more than I expected, but this is good because there's 2 A's in my name, so we can choose one now, and then this is probably the entire list for the second half of it. Like I said, there's quite a few here. Really quick to run through them, we have Anxious People, Adrian Jeffel, A Thousand Splendid Suns, A Kingdom of Stars and Shadows, A River of Royal Blood, Assistant to the Villain, Already Falling, and Unexpected, Paradise, and A Torch Against the Night. So the 2 things I don't really want to do is start a new series or read a fantasy. I'm not really in the mood for a fantasy, so if I take out all of the fantasy books and also books that start a series, we're left with these 5. So we have a couple romances, and I think the other ones are just fiction novels. So honestly, the one that's calling my name the most is Anxious People. I read Beartown by Frederick Bachman a few months ago and I really enjoyed it. I want to continue that series. Unfortunately, none of the letters of my name are in that series. I've heard great things about this. It says there's a Netflix series on it. I really like his writing style. I think it's very different. Do I go with this one? Let me see. What is this one about? I kind of forgot. It says that it's about a real estate open house and there's a bank robber that bursts in and takes 8 strangers hostage, and then it says none of them are entirely who they appear to be. I might do this. This might be the A book that we read, the first A book. We're gonna have to read another one at some point in this video, but I think this is gonna be our next read. I'm very excited. I have really high expectations and high hopes for this book, which I hope doesn't fail me. We shall see. I'm gonna go start this and I'll give some updates. I am very excited about this one. Maybe I'll look it up. Actually, no. I always look books up on Goodreads before I read them, but I'm not gonna do that about this one. I'm just gonna read it. So I'll let you know how it goes. I'm actually really excited about this. I'm only on page 1 and I felt this way again about Beartown, but the way that he just puts thoughts and feelings and stuff into words is like so crazy. Like even just the metaphors that he uses, like literally on page 1, chapter 1. Some of us never manage to get the chaos under control, so our lives simply carry on, the world spinning through space at 2 million miles an hour while we bounce about on its surface like so many lost socks. Our hearts are bars of soap that we keep losing hold of. The moment we relax, they drift off, fall in love, and get broken all in the wink of an eye. And then it goes on to explain more things in crazy metaphors and like comparisons. And then it says, because everyone loves someone and anyone who loves someone has had those desperate nights where we lie awake trying to figure out how we can afford to carry on being human beings. Sometimes that makes us do things that seem ridiculous in hindsight, but which felt like the only way out at the time. The way he's setting up the story is like so good. I'm already like underlining things. So when you're underlining things on page 1, I think that's a good sign. I love the way he writes. I feel like he's like talking to me as he's writing. Like I love when authors do that. They kind of like, instead of tell you the story just through words of like describing things, it's like they're genuinely talking to you. Like it says, this story isn't about that man, so you don't really need to think about him right now. Well, obviously you can't help thinking about him. It's like saying, don't think about cookies, and now you're thinking about cookies. And then it goes on to say something else, and then it says, think about something nicer. Think about cookies. I'm really enjoying it. I'm quite literally on page 5. So I love the setup of this one. the next day. I'm about 134 pages in. I'm on chapter 32, but this book I'm enjoying so much. Still, from when I started it, I'm still just so immersed in it. Like, I think it's just his writing style is so like enthralling. Like, every time I put this book down yesterday, I thought about it. I was like, I want to pick it up. I want to see what he's gonna write about next. I want to see what happens. And the base of the story and the summary is about this like bank robbery that kind of went wrong and a hostage situation that went wrong. It has like the mystery of like what happened there, but also following each character and their backstory and how they got there and like what happened before they got there and like what their story is a little bit, but also goes into detail of different topics and themes, which is really interesting. All the mix of stuff. Whoever on the back said, or the Washington Post said, you're not only crying, but you're also laughing and stuff like that. Like, I've giggled. Like, the humor in here is so interesting because each person at the hostage situation are such characters, and their personalities and the way they're acting at a hostage situation is just crazy. But what was really interesting is the beginning. We were following two characters before we met anyone else. We didn't know their names. They were just referred to as the younger officer and the older officer for maybe like 30 pages. And I was so interested in the story without even knowing anyone's names. Like, everyone was just being called like the title of what they are to the story, which was such an interesting way to incorporate and introduce the characters. We're introduced to the realtor as the realtor, and we learn more about her as the realtor, and then we learn her name. And it's like, okay, now I can put a name to who you are, and this whole other character in such an interesting way to do it rather than just giving us their names. It's like we're learning more about them before we know really who they are and what their names are. I really liked that. It was really interesting, but it tackles kind of like father-son dynamics. It tackles like adulting and becoming an adult and kind of questioning your morals, which also did in Beartown. Like, the whole morals of different characters and stuff was really like laying into the story. He does like a really interesting job of showing perspectives to the same situation from all these different characters, and ones that you probably wouldn't have thought of like otherwise. It's just really, really interesting the way that he writes, and thoughts that are like in my head or like in other people's heads, he puts them into words on paper, and it's like, wow, that's an interesting take, but also an interesting way to explain things and get from point A to point B. It's really, really interesting because he'll start talking about something and you're like, okay, like, what's the point of this? But by the end of it, you're like, no, that was crazy. Like, how we got from there to here is like insane. And the way he'll introduce things, it's like, okay, this is what's happening, but then it like all weaves together like perfectly. Like, oh my god, that's who that is. And it's like we're now learning as he's like writing it, but not blatantly, like not saying this is where this person came from. He's like just describing the scene and what the character is just like talking to another one about, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, that's you. I don't know if that makes sense, because it makes sense knowing what happens in the book, but as we're learning about each character and going deeper into each character and deeper into these different like themes that he's talking about, he's still keeping like the mystery and the small little plot twists like alive. Like, the combination is very interesting. We'll go from like one chapter of metaphors and comparisons to things, and then the next chapter it's like humor within the characters. So I'm really enjoying it. It's also interesting the different point of views that are in this. It's mostly third point of view, but sometimes he'll step out of that and he'll write in second point of view. Like I said, it seems like he's talking to me sometimes. He's like, oh, you wouldn't do that, you whatever, like, you, if you were in this situation, like talking to me. And it kind of like pulls me into the story a little bit more, because it's like I feel like he's literally talking to me. I just think his storytelling is crazy, and the different perspectives that we're getting is crazy, and I'm really interested to see where we end up, what's gonna happen, because like I said, we still have the mystery of like the bank robber and what's going on with them, and there we're getting like small pieces to the picture, and then some of the little puzzle pieces like click, and you're like, oh my god, that's crazy. Also, the way that he kind of just like describes things, where it's reminding me, like, you know, when you're in like school, not like college, like early school, and you're learning about like reading literature and like picking apart the words and stuff. I always hated that. I was just like, why can't they just say the curtain's blue? Why are they making so many details and descriptions? Like, just say and get to the point that it's blue. Now, reading books like this and like just like reading a lot, I appreciate when there's more detail to it, and it's like more of a beautiful like sentence going on. And it's just so funny. Like, I was thinking about it yesterday. Like, when I was younger, hated when there was just like so much description, and then the teacher would be like, okay, so what do you think he means here? And I'm just like, just say what you mean. Anyway, that brings me to my point. I like the way that he like paints pictures without saying like, oh, it was gray outside. The sky doesn't seem to bother even attempting to impress us. It greets us with the color of newspaper in a puddle, and dawn leaves behind it a fog as if someone has been setting fire to ghosts. Like, the way that he's telling you it is not a nice day outside. The weather's not nice. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm enjoying it. I'm excited to see where we get to with this story and what's gonna happen by the end of it with our characters, but also just like what he's been talking about and like the topics he's touching on. I'm really happy I picked this up, and it's so funny because I remember vividly, like when I started reading again, maybe like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, this was the book that I always noticed when I went into Barnes & Noble, and it always interested me. I always wanted to pick it up and buy it, and I never did, and I don't know why, but a few years ago I ended up buying it. It's just been sitting on my shelf since, and I always think about this, like, you don't know the books on your like physical TBR or like TBR in general that like you may end up giving a 5-star and loving, and they're just like sitting there collecting dust for a little. It's funny when you like end up picking it up and you're like, oh wow, I should have read this. Actually though, then it's another thing where it's like, if I did pick this up 5 years ago, would it hit the way it's hitting happening right now? Like, would I have liked it? Probably not. I feel like I picked this up at the perfect time. Was it meant to be? Is that getting too much? Is that too deep? I think it was meant to be that I picked it up at the perfect time. Anyway, I'm gonna go walk on my little treadmill walking pad thing, but the only issue with that is that I can't like underline and highlight while I'm walking because it gets a little shaky, so maybe I'll just tab some stuff to highlight for later if I have anything to underline. But like, I've been like kind of going in. So anyway, I'm gonna go walk, I'm gonna go read. I'll give some updates when I get further in, maybe when I finish, I don't really know. This book is like kind of being funny. It's taking on the whole robbery hostage situation, but in a very like almost like sitcom-y. The humor that you get in like Schitt's Creek and like those type of shows, like almost like dry humor kind of way. It's very interesting because you have him, the author, talking about like more serious topics and like going into different things. Like definitely check trigger warnings if you're gonna read this book. Like it hits different topics like that, but the actual storyline with the characters and their dialogue and what they're talking about and they're doing has so much humor in it, and I really just didn't expect that. The whole mix of it is very interesting, but I keep thinking about like, what is it, a show? Yeah, Netflix series. Like I'm just so curious how they portrayed this into a show. Like they have to have like huge personalities for the actors because each character is just so interesting and like kind of just like, well, some of them were kind of like giving like just dumb. Even like the bank robber guy, he's not really holding down anything. He's kind of like following the lead of the hostages now. I don't know, it's just so interesting and not what I expected the story to be at all. I'm still enjoying it a lot. I'm really into the actual storyline. I'm like so curious of how this is gonna end. Like I have like no idea. There's still a mystery element to it too, with the two cops' point of views, like trying to figure out exactly what happened, and then it'll fast forward to, or not fast forward, it'll rewind to the hostages and like the bank robber guy in the apartment, the timeline of events through their point of view, and then it fast forward to present time, what the cops are trying to figure out, and we're just like no one knows what's going on. Literally no one. Find things out because we know something has happened. Like we know a specific thing has happened in the apartment, but we find that out so early on that when the pieces start getting put together, then you find out like how it happened. You're like no words. Like not that it's anything like super crazy, but it's the way that he tells the story and he saves some of the parts for when you find out. You kind of forget that you're waiting to find out how that happened. So when he does tell you, you're like, that is so interesting. And it's never really anything crazy. We just found out how one of the police officers got a bump on his head. But we found out he got a bump on his head so early on in the story, like way before 100 pages. And now we just found out very like small and very like literally in like 2 sentences how it happened. But all the stuff leading up to it, I just think it's like such an interesting way of storytelling. I keep using the word interesting, but genuinely that's the only word I can think of still. Hello guys, I finished Anxious People this morning. I only had like 60-ish pages to go and completely binged the rest of it. I am obsessed with his writing style. It is so unique and his storytelling is just so wonderful. The way he wraps everything up and the way that everything like intersects and connects, like it's just like not where I thought anything was gonna go. I think in the beginning it was feeling like a 5-star for sure. Like I was obsessed with it. I think some parts got a little silly, which I know that's like the comedic factor that was included in here, and I know that each character was meant to be silly. Like that was the whole point of it. They're like, the narrator literally just calls them idiots sometimes. Like that's just how their characters are, which made it more entertaining while I was reading what was going on in the apartment in the hostage situation. And like I said, it felt like I was watching just like a satire, like comedic thing, which I need to see the show on this. Like I don't know how they're gonna put this on a screen and like get all like the comedic stuff right. So I love that part of it. I think it got a little bit too silly at some points, but like not in a bad way. I just think it was like, I don't really know, a little silly. It had like the comedic silly parts of it, but then it also on the other side had such deep things. I think if you were to read this, definitely check trigger warnings on it. The way he's able to describe things and bring things up and talk about different topics was just done in such a nice way. It's very unserious at a lot of points and it's also very moving at a lot of points, which I think is hard to combine the two and still make it a really nice story and really entertaining. I couldn't stop reading. I wanted to know what was gonna happen, and also his writing style was just so like, I think I said the word enthralling yesterday and it really truly is. It kind of just really portrayed and showed a lesson of empathy and showed that people have complex and struggles and things in their personal lives and internal lives and behind closed doors that you don't see, especially on first impressions, because like I said, very unserious characters, but when you get the backstory of them and where they came from and what they're all dealing with, it goes like a lot deeper into it. I think the end of it was just really touching. Like I was like tearing up. I love the way it all wrapped up, like a lot. I think I'm gonna give it like between, I don't really know. I'm stuck between like 4 or 4.5. I might give it a 4.25. I'm obsessed with his writing style. I think it is just so unique. I highly recommend this book, especially if you like good quotes and thought-provoking writing, but also the whole combination of like the comedic stuff that I just did not expect was like such a light throughout it, and it was just done so well. I'm really happy that I chose this book. I think I read it at the perfect time. Like I said, if I read this at any other time, I think it also could have been either boring or I didn't understand the picture of it, like the whole picture. Picking this up at the right time is also important, which you never know when the right time is, but I do highly recommend this if you haven't read it yet. Now, I went through my physical TBR and looked at all of the R books that are on my physical TBR. I only have 2, surprisingly. I didn't realize that I only had 2. Runaway Love by Melanie Harlow, and then I also have Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, these are on 2 complete opposite sides of the spectrum of genres and just anything in general, just the covers specifically, like could not be more opposite. I'm not gonna sit here and say like I want to read this. Am I intimidated by this book? Yes. Do I want to start a full sci-fi series? Not really. But am I also intrigued and want to know the hype around it and why everyone loves it? Like 100%. I also don't want to be slumped out if I'm not enjoying this, but I want to read it for the video and everything. So I don't know what I'm gonna pick. This one has been on my TBR for a couple of years now. I really would love to knock this off, but I don't know. I like don't know which one I'm gonna pick. I've been sitting here looking at them for the past like hour. I feel like I should read this one, but I'm more want to read this one, so I'm struggling. You guys can't be mad at me because I think I'm gonna choose Runaway Love. I read the first page of Red Rising and I just don't think it's the right time, and I really want to enjoy this book in this series, so this is just screaming fall winter vibes. Like I'm saving all of the fantasies that are on my radar for that time because I know I'm gonna eat them up, and I just don't want to sit here and force myself to read it and then it end up being a flop for me, and I just genuinely see that happening. I don't want to do it a disservice, so we're gonna start Runaway Love. I think it's single father, nanny trope, something like that, small town maybe. I think it's part of an interconnected standalone series as well. It feels less like a commitment than starting Red Rising because this is like, once I finish this, I gotta continue the series. But this one, it's interconnected. It's less pressure. I'm actually very excited. I'm kind of in, or actually not kind of, I am in a romance mood. A banter, romance, giggly giddy mood. And I don't think those descriptions and adjectives I would use to describe the mood I'm gonna get from this one. So I think that's telling which one I should start. Now the next day. I'm honestly I think a little over halfway of this book. It is so bingeable and fast-paced. There's so much dialogue that just makes it go so quick, and the story is just really easy to read. But basically I don't think I said what this is about. I did say it's like single father who needs a nanny. Our main character Veronica flees her wedding in the first chapter. Something happens, she runs away, and she's not stuck, but she runs and she's in this small town. She runs into like a diner and she meets all the small townspeople. She's telling them about like what happened to her, and one of the people there show like a help wanted sign for one of the locals there who needs a nanny for the summer. That ends up being Austin. He's a single father of twins. His sister usually nannies, but she has to go something for her job, so they're looking for someone. It's really last minute, so they haven't found anyone. Austin's also the oldest son, the oldest brother of, I think there's 5 of them, and he works for his father's business, but he doesn't really want to, but doesn't want to say like he wants to do his own thing because he's always been helping his father. You know, his father was a single father, so he's always trying to help and doesn't really want to give that up. What I love about this one is the small town vibes of it are like impeccable. Like you get all of the townspeople that are nosy, but you also get to know them. You get all like the cute town stuff, the different shops, you know, you have the diner, you have all these different things are going, you have his siblings and all the like side characters you get from a small town is like my favorite part of it, and that's definitely giving in this. When I started this, it really reminded me of Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Obviously that one's not like nanny trope, but like what happens in that book kind of gives the same vibes, and also kind of like the writing style a little bit and like the pacing of it and like all the dialogue of Lucy Score and like Elsie Silver. Like it's definitely giving those vibes. I will say I'm not invested really. I am enjoying my time reading. It's definitely entertaining. It's nothing too crazy. I will say I don't really love Austin as a character. Like even in the beginning when this woman shows up looking for a job, like yeah, maybe not as a nanny, but she had nowhere to go. Her ex-fiance was like, had all control over her, so she had like no home, no job, no car, no phone, like nothing, and he like wouldn't let her stay over. He had like a side house, like he wouldn't let her, he kept saying no, and I was like, chivalry is literally dead with this guy. Like that is just not kind. You see this woman in shambles, like give her a break for like a second. I know you just met her, but like everyone's saying like she's whatever. That part I didn't love, and they're definitely not emotionally connecting. It's definitely more of like a physical lusty connection, which isn't my favorite favorite type, but it's also not bad. I don't know, I think that's why I'm not like too invested in them. I think I'm just like enjoying reading it and learning about them, but I'm not loving Austin as a character. I feel like he's like blaming Veronica for the way that he feels about her and like his physical attraction to her. He's like, she's wearing this and she smells like this, and if she wasn't this, then maybe I wouldn't be attracted to her like so much. And I'm just like, that's a you problem. That is not a her problem. So don't really love him a lot. Like I feel like he could just be kinder. I think that's where it stems from, like me just not loving like the grumpy sunshine. Well, I do like grumpy sunshine, but a lot of times the grumpy men are just like, I just want to be like loosen up a little bit, and that's what I want to say to him. Like literally just loosen up, or use your words, communicate. Communication is definitely key, and he does not have that skill. So don't love him. That's not to say I'm not enjoying it. It's definitely entertaining. I'm already over halfway and very excited to finish it today because it's so fast paced. I recently have been loving the single parent trope, so I love that part of it. I like seeing her nannying the kids and the kids loving the nanny, and like that's always just so fun. So far it's good. It just probably won't be like one of my favorite books ever. Yesterday I started it when I had to get my car serviced. If you remember my last reading vlog, I had to go and my appointment just disappeared. So I went yesterday and I sat there for like an hour and I read like 50-ish, 60-ish pages and couldn't stop. So I'm probably gonna finish it today. It's just good. I have like no really complaints. I mean, I did just complain a little bit, but for what I knew it was gonna give, it's giving exactly what I thought, if that makes any sense. Runaway Love. I'm so conflicted because I loved Veronica, our female main character. I saw myself in her a lot. She was raised by a single mother. She grew up dancing. Her dance family was like her second family. The way she would react to things and things she was doing and saying, like, I really enjoyed her as a character. Austin, on the other hand, was just giving like toxic masculinity, like pick me. Like I just did not enjoy him as a character like at all, and I really just like skimmed the last like 20%. I didn't read the epilogue, so I was like, honestly, if this were real life, I would reach out to Veronica and be like, maybe move on, like maybe just don't stay with him. Like I can't see this going well in the future. And it's also because like she just got out of the engagement, and usually when this happens in books and they like go right to like another relationship without having like space between and like time for themselves, I'd be like, no, that's fine. Like the way the relationship is going, like she can see what she deserved. This one though, it was like going from one side of like a toxic relationship that was like really bad to like one that wasn't really like toxic, but more just like, you can do better. Like, girl, you can do so much better. So I actually tabbed a few parts that can prove what I'm trying to say. On page like 238, like we're over halfway now. We should be in the territory where I'm like seeing their connection and like emotional connection. Like, yeah, maybe physical stuff has happened, but like I should be feeling them together as a couple and rooting for them. But he stood up for her in front of her ex when he knew what her ex has like done to her and like the relationship she was in. Like the bare minimum should be standing up for her and protecting her in front of him. And she's like, but what about his personal needs? Like I need to thank him for that. Like that's bare minimum. Like she just like feels bad about a lot of things, and I think it's like stuff that stems from her last relationship, and instead of like thinking about it and like having time to herself to think about it. And Austin never said like, no, that's okay, like whatever. He was always in for it. Like he was just like, his top priority was like the physicalness between them. It was so interesting. Another one was she like cooked him dinner, you know, they're having a good time. She's like asking him about like him like doing his own work and like telling his father like maybe he doesn't want to do say in like the father's business, you know, work for his dream job. And then she's just like being really kind about it, just asking genuine questions. He was like, it's what he'd done for his father, and she was like, is it the thing you'd want, or I want her Adelaide to do for you? And he was like, no, but it's different. She goes, how so? He says, it just is. He snaps, it's my family, my business, so leave it alone. Grabbed the empty bowls, brings them to the sink, and like storms away. She comes up behind him and says, I'm sorry. She says, I'm sorry. She did nothing wrong. And he's like, it's okay. What do you mean? Saying you do not need to apologize. Oh my god, that part was just like so mind-blowing to me. And then, don't worry, there's more. So finally the kids aren't there for the week. They're with their mother. They were texting and he was like, my dad won't shut up about you because they spent time together and like whatever. My dad told me I should take you out on a fancy restaurant, like out to a fancy restaurant while the kids are gone. She said, oh really, what'd you say? He says, I told him I was already having sex with you at home for free, but like not having sex, like the F word. I was already at home for free. And then he goes, kidding. If you'd like to go out, we can. I just like being alone with you. I don't want to share. Also don't want people talking. She goes, it's fine. I don't need fancy restaurants. Girl, stand up. This is like, whatever. And he didn't even like follow up with anything else. Like they just like switched the conversation. I just think he's not good with his emotions. Like he grew up really fast and was never like emotional or let his emotions show. So like him now as an adult, like it's not really helping the matter. She gets this really cool opportunity to almost, now she doesn't have the job, but like her friend is helping her get a job back in New York because she was a rockette growing up. Like no one is like saying anything of how cool she was being a literally a New York City like rockette. dancer. And she was like, I don't have a lot of details yet, but my friend Morgan passed my new number to the choreographer. You know what he says? Instead of, oh my god, that's such a cool opportunity, like I'm so happy for you. Did you date him? There's one thing about a possessive man, but doing it in like not an aggressive way, and like there's like different ways to do it. This is not the way to do it. Did you date him? She goes, no, he was gay. Okay. So that was just like so crazy. I think I have one more. I just like, every time he would like speak, after she was just being like so kind, I was like, I don't know how she's putting up with this. I don't like this man. I don't like this man, but for the sake of Veronica, I really liked her. I really liked the kids. I liked the small town. I liked the side characters. I liked everything but Austin. So I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Was it entertaining? Yes, it was very entertaining. It was very fast paced. I just was fed up with him. It was still like a good read. It wasn't bad in any sense. The writing style was really good, really fast paced. Like I keep saying, so bingeable. I would be open to reading another book of this author's because I liked the side characters. I liked what they were about. Even his brother in here was like, what is wrong with you? And he just wouldn't admit to anything or stop acting like a man baby. So anyway, that is the R book finished. I liked everything but Austin, and it didn't even like start happening until like the second half of the book. So like I think it was a 3-star. It was still good. I just like, I feel bad for my girl Veronica, but she's in love and I'm happy for her. We have one last letter of my name. Obviously that is A. I have all these options from before, but really 2 options that I'm really looking at and would like to read. The first one I'm thinking is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. This book I've seen around a lot, and I actually got the arc of this like way before it came out, and I never read it, but I've heard great things about it. I've heard people are giggling while it's going on. I think it's a fantasy book. I'm gonna be honest, I have not read the summary of this. I just know it's literally about an assistant to the villain, and there's a romance in here. It's a fantasy. It has like comedic factors involved, and that's all I really need to know. And then I also forgot that I had this on my shelf. Photo Finish by Elsie Silver. Starts with an A, and it was on my shelf here, not on my like TBR cart, so I didn't really realize until I was looking at my shelf the other day, and I was like, oh my god, I have this. I don't know if I want to read this just yet because I did just read a small town romance, and I feel like this could give the same vibes, and I don't want to read a similar book from the last one, so I'm not sure if I want to do this. I feel like I'm leaning more towards Assistant to the Villain, and I heard that the next one comes out early August, which is perfect timing, so I feel like this would be perfect for right now. Again, I've heard that people are giggling while they're reading this, and I need me a book that's gonna make me giggle. So I think I'm gonna start this one. Besties, some updates. It is now the next day, and I think I'm like 20-something% of the way through this book. I downloaded it onto my Kindle from the Libby app, and that was such a help because I don't know if it's just the arc, which I think it is because when I've seen this book, the paperback in Barnes & Noble, it's like normal size paperback, but this is like longer, almost feels like a hardcover size paperback, if you know, like that sizing. So font is like teeny tiny. So I looked it up on Libby and I was like, I need to read this digitally. I need to read this on my Kindle because the font was just so small, and I wasn't like fully in the fantasy mood when I started this. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it or if I'm like in the mood for it completely, but so far so good. I just had to like get into it. It's literally about the assistant who needed a job to help her family and to support her family because her father fell ill and she has a sister, so she needed a job. She runs into the woods, she bumps into this guy, and she ends up following him, and he ends up being the villain who to the whole world, the whole kingdom, is this like old guy, and people just in their heads think of him differently than who he really is. So when she met him, she was like, no way, you're the villain. He's really attractive. And she follows him. He gives her a job as the assistant, and now that was like the prologue, and then it's like 5 months later she's been working for him as an assistant. And I think what makes this really fun is it's very like lighthearted, even though we're following the assistant to a villain, like we're in the villain's like castle or wherever, the manor, following someone that's trying to take down like the king and stuff. Like it's not dark in any way, like it's very just like light and comedic, but also you have the villain. And I didn't realize, but this morning I started reading and it's dual point of view, which has made this just so much more fun because his point of view is so good and not what I expected. I didn't realize it was gonna be like not romance, because they're not like romancing just yet, but just like what's happening. I'm just like eating it up. And also Evie, our main female character, is so funny. Like she's just sarcastic, and what she brings to the villain and the villain's like workplace is just really funny. I don't really have too much opinions on what's going on because I feel like I'm still in the beginnings of it. What's happening is someone is trying to infiltrate, like there's a, not an imposter, but someone in the villain's like workplace, they think, is trying to take down the villain. Like lots has gone on where there's like someone inside that's like the mole. They're trying to figure out who it is that is not loyal to the villain. That's kind of like the plot and like the problem that's happening. But so far so good. I really like the writing style, and I'm excited to see where this one's gonna go. I'm gonna go sit outside, I'm gonna read a bit, and I will come back with any updates or thoughts or opinions. And so far so good. small little update before I finish the book. I feel like I haven't had many clips of me even reading this. I haven't had like many reactions to the book. I feel like I'm just reading and like that's really it. I have nothing to say, which is really interesting because I feel like a lot's going on, but like I have no opinions on it. I don't know, it's so interesting. But not only do I have 2 forms of reading now, I have 3 forms because I started listening to it on Audible. I don't know why, but I felt like it was going so slow. I don't know if it was just a me thing. It probably is a me thing, but it was taking me so long to read it. I was like, let me just start listening to it, and I really like the audiobook. There is dual point of view in this book, which I love so much because like I said, it's very unserious, but our main character, or our male main character, the villain, is like morally gray obviously, but it's one of those where he hates everyone but you. And when it's like morally gray, he like hates everyone, like he's the villain, wants to take everyone down, like does not give anyone the time of day. But our female main character, like there's something about that I eat up. So that part is really, really good. Whereas I was reading it and I was like, I don't really like, I can't, nothing's being pictured in my head. So I think that's maybe why it was taking me a while to read. I was trying, really focusing on what I was reading to like picture it. I have about 100 pages left, so I'm definitely gonna finish it today. I don't think I'm like loving it. I'm really loving the characters though. I love our main characters, our side characters, the humor in them and the relationships and the dialogue I love a lot. I think it's just the plot I'm not loving and I'm not connecting to. I don't really know. We'll see when I finish it, I think, but so far I think more of like the characters is what I'm really enjoying and like their interactions and stuff. I think when we focus on the plot of what they're doing, I just like don't love it and I don't even like know really what's going on. I feel like the plot isn't like, I mean obviously there's a plot. I said our problem is someone's trying to take down our villain and that's not good. And like we're getting like more information of our 2 characters and how he became the villain we're still trying to figure out, and also what's happened to Evie and like both of their pasts and stuff. Like we're still unlocking all of that. So there's more I'm interested in and I'm still curious about, but that's about like our main characters. When it comes to the plot, I just don't really love it, but it's still going well. I'm gonna listen to the rest of it, I think, which is crazy. I have so many forms of this book going on. And then I realized when I started listening to it, the cover of it is different than the ARC cover. Like there's no graphics on this one. On the actual cover of it, little graphics like on the bottom of it and on the top of it. And one of my favorite parts of this book that makes it so funny, and like when this happens in the book I just like giggle, is this little frog who is a little character in the book. He wears a crown, his name is Kingsley, and when situations are going on, like mostly like serious situations, it'll pan over to Kingsley and he'll have a sign holding up and it'll be like bad idea or like help or like something funny in the moment that's like very serious, and he makes it so unserious. And just the fact that it's a frog holding up a sign, like where are you getting this sign? But it's on the cover of the book. You can see Kingsley like right up there, but he's not on my book. But I just saw it when I started the audio and I was like, I love that little character and he brings so much little funny humor to these scenes. But like I said, it's very just like unserious at some moments, but then we do get some serious moments when we're learning about our characters or some of the plot that gets more serious, but the mix of it is fun. Little update, actually not a little update, this is a final update. I finished listening to Assistant to the Villain, just gave back my hold of the Kindle version of this. I don't know how to feel about it because the characters were so fun. Our main character, like the villain main character, reminded me a lot of Kaz from Six of Crows. Just like his demeanor and the way he like reacted to things was kind of giving Kaz, not in the actual plot, like just his personality sometimes reminded me of Kaz, and I love Kaz. And then Evie was just so fun to follow along. I feel like a lot of characters with her personality could get a little bit annoying at times. She was just fun like the whole entire time, and like learning more about her. But we do find something out at the end, like the whole plot comes together and you're like waiting to find out what this is. And I guessed it right in the beginning and I thought I was like so far off. I was like, there's no way. But that was like my first guess and that's exactly what happened. So when it did happen, I was kind of underwhelmed, but I was also like shook that I even like guessed it. Other than that, I just feel like getting to each like big plot point in the book took a while to get there. Like the pacing was just so slow. Even though I enjoyed being with our characters and learning about our characters and just like hearing them talk to each other was just so fun, I just think like the pacing and going through the story was just a little bit too slow and drawn out for me. It does leave on a little bit of a cliffhanger, so not a little bit, like that is pretty big cliffhanger, so I do think I will probably listen to the next one. I probably won't read it, but I think I'm gonna give it maybe 3.5 stars. Again, I loved the Grumpy Sunshine, the Morley Grit character, and the way that Evie like pulled things out of him when he like no one else can, like he literally wants to kill everyone basically. But I really enjoyed it. I just don't think I loved following along with like the plot of it. I loved our characters and the dialogue and everything like that. The writing was so fun. And that is all of the books for today's video. This was such a fun little challenge. I think challenges like these ones are fun to do, trying to get books off my physical TBR. Like it kind of motivates me to pick through my physical TBR to get books off. So if you have any other type of challenges and reading vlog challenges for me to do, let me know down below or let me know in the comments, because this one was really fun. These are some of my favorite videos to film and it feels good now having 4 books knocked off my physical TBR. And I'm not done yet. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna read at one point all of the books on my physical TBR, but it just feels good getting some off of them. Oh, I also went to Barnes this morning for another reason. reason, but I saw the book that I read, Runaway Love. It was in Barnes, which I didn't expect. I thought it was an indie book, but I guess it's getting traditionally published. I'm not too sure, but it had sprayed edges. So if you want to buy that book and you see it at Barnes, it has little kisses on the side. It is so stunning. It is so pretty. So if you're interested in that book, highly recommend running to Barnes and seeing if yours has it. It was so pretty. Thank you guys for coming along. Let me know if you've read any of these, any of your thoughts and your opinions. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you did, and I'll see you hopefully in the next one. Bye!